Class, your attention, please.
Your teacher has a rule. School is cool.
Attention everybody, class is in session. Welcome back to the second episode of the Classic Match Classroom. I am your professor, Tyler Wolf. And why don't you introduce yourself, Prodigy?
Student can introduce himself. I am the Prodigy of the classroom, Anthony Cerulli. How are you doing, Professor?
You know, I'm doing amazing. I had such a great time doing this with you last week, going back and looking at one of my favorite feuds of all time, that I had to assign you homework, part 2 of this feud. I couldn't stop at just part 1.
I love doing this type of homework. It's much better than calculus or algebra. So I was more than happy to complete this assignment, but I think I completed it to my best of my ability. So I'm looking forward for this one.
Yeah, lots of fun feedback we've gotten from everybody. And if you guys want to see a match featured on a match featured, easy for me to say, on the Classic Match Classroom, then leave us some feedback. Twitter, Instagram, Prodigy, hit us up with all of our handles.
We are currently at Instagram at the Classic Match Classroom, all one word, obviously. For Twitter, we are CM Classroom, not to be confused with CM Punk. We are CM Classroom. However, we are the best podcast in the world, so I think it fits the CM, but hey, if you're interested in dropping us a match for me to watch, probably for the first time, go ahead, put it in one of our comments, DM us. You could even put it in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. Give us some suggestions, because we are always open for more assignments here at the classroom.
That's right. And you can continue to catch all of these episodes anywhere you can hear a podcast, on YouTube. It'll be posted at www.counted7.com. Cheap plug, Mick Foley. Well, let's get into things here. So last week we touched base on Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, their build up to their fantastic Survivor Series match. I sent you a bunch of links for the build up to round 2. How excited were you to get into round 2 after watching the build of the first match?
Oh, I was more than excited, really. Austin and Bret had an amazing build and amazing match over at Survivor Series in '96. So when I gotten the opportunity to see their '97 match, at WrestleMania 13, this was the first time that I ever saw it. I've seen moments before, but I never watched it in its entirety. Plus, even more so, I saw a good amount of the build for the Survivor Series match. I really went into this feud completely blind. I didn't know much about what happened. So I think this really added to the experience of just, seeing what led up to what many consider to be the greatest match of all time.
And we're going to pick right up where we left off. Bret Hart is your new number 1 contender. We're heading into the December In Your House pay-per-view. It's time, where he is challenging new world champion Psycho Sid. Shawn Michaels on commentary here. I sent you, I didn't make you watch the whole match. I don't know if you did or not, because I wouldn't subject anyone to forcefully watch Sid matches if they don't have to. But let's talk about the finish of this match here. Shawn's got beef with Sid. Bret wants to be the champ. He still has underlying issues with Shawn. Shawn Michaels accidentally costing Bret Hart the world championship during this match when they collide on the apron after Sid got in Michael's face and pie-faced him. And then Bret Hart showing some uncharacteristic aggression and giving him the old hockey pullover jersey, fisting Shawn Michaels in there with the uppercuts. What do you think about how we're starting off the lesson this week?
Oh man, Bret really nailed it to him with those uppercuts.
He was stiff.
Yeah, very. I mean, you're starting to see Brett snap a little bit, which I love. So was this the question to the professor? Was this the first instance that you start to see Brett kind of turning a little bit? Because they kind of teased it with Brett being upset about being screwed out of the WrestleMania 12 match, potentially going to WCW. But was this the first time that we kind of saw an inkling that maybe Bret Hart could turn heel?
Yeah, this was the first time that Brett showed some real on-air aggression. You know, they kind of you mentioned that he's talked about how upset he was after losing at WrestleMania 12, but he came back. He said, "Sean beat me. I have no excuses." So he kind of baby-faced himself there, right? This was just Bret Hart losing a match, and after the match is over, not being the hero that we know him as, and just laying out Shawn Michaels, and very uncharacteristic for him. And it's going to be the trend now. Bret Hart's upset. He feels like he's been screwed out of the title, and he's not going to take it anymore. And that's going to build us into the Royal Rumble. But before we get to the Royal Rumble,
well, I actually had one more point, and this
yeah.
was kind of a weird point, but I don't know. It kind of caught my eye in that there was just something very eerie. And I don't know if this was intentional. I know WWE likes these aesthetic moments or whatever, but I felt like there was something very eerie about Brett going wild on Shawn Michaels while Sid's music was playing in the background of just that,
Yeah.
that kind of psycho little, it felt like it was, I don't know if it was, like I said, I don't know if it's intentional, but it feels like a little bit more symbolism there that, this is kind of Brett's turning. And that music was really perfect for it. And I love
nice
the way
little touch.
yeah, I mean, I love the way that the pay-per-view went off the air that way on like all this chaos. You have Sid kind of fist bumping everyone. Brett's giving him these uppercuts. Sean's coming back with the commentary, headset kind of screaming in it. Sean screaming at the fans, Sid screaming at the fans. Brett's nowhere to be seen. All this chaos, and just the entire time, Sid's music is just playing throughout. Because sometimes, even in modern wrestling, you would cut, the music off. You would let the moment play out a little bit, but the music just played throughout. And I think it was very fitting of everything that was going on, the chaos mixed with the psycho music. That was just a little minor point there.
Yeah, but now the big question is, now where is Steve Austin in all of this? Ever since the loss at Survivor Series, Steve Austin has become obsessed with Bret Hart. He's constantly doing run-ins with him, constantly trying to get cheap shots in on him. He's not playing the chicken shit heel. He wants to fight Bret Hart. He wants to hurt Bret Hart. Now it's become personal for Austin. I feel like Austin feels like he's been embarrassed by losing to a wrestling move by Bret Hart at Survivor Series. And he's going to take whatever shortcuts he can, or he's going to do whatever heel things he has to do to beat Bret Hart. And that's going to bring us to Royal Rumble 1997. Stone Cold Steve Austin was the superstar of this event. He entered at the number 3 position. I think he threw out about 9 guys in a row. He had the ring to himself for the majority of this event. And then there's that legendary moment where Austin's sitting on the turnbuckle, calling everybody on, and that guitar riff hits, and here comes Bret Hart. And we're getting Bret Hart. Yeah, that look, the jaw drops, hands on his head. Oh, shit. And then he just gets down and psychs himself up. Come on, let's do this. This is the first time that these guys are inside the ring one-on-one since Survivor Series. And what a moment that is.
Uh-oh. Yes! 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 Dr. Hitman Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin slugging it out in the Royal Rumble. Boy, this is hellfire and brimstone when these two get together. Bret Hart, drives it into the spine area. Bret Hart with a clothesline.
So kind of run me through your thoughts on Steve Austin at Royal Rumble 97.
So I didn't watch the entirety of the match, and I want to go back and check it out, especially now after these moments. But I did watch, that iconic just hands on the head and whatever, that face. I just laughed so much at that. That was a great moment.
Amazing.
This is why I love the Royal Rumble, and this is why I kind of hate when they mess it up, is that the Rumble is supposed to be for these moments that you're hyping up your WrestleMania matches. This is a perfect example of that, because although we have seen Austin and Hart go at it already, kind of different to how, let's say, Hogan and Warrior, the first time they went off against each other, they were butting heads in the Rumble. It just felt like it renewed that energy in the feud between these two, which made you want to see these guys go up against each other, because while you've been so distracted with Bret in the world title picture, now here comes Bret back to Austin. It's like, well, these guys have unfinished business. I kind of want to see this, and maybe even see it for the title. So I think that it just adds so much. And this little exchange that they had, though short, with the ring to themselves, was really fun to see.
A very fun moment in this for me. And I didn't send you this clip. I couldn't find it, and I wish I could have. But it's as soon as they're done brawling there, Bret locks Austin in the sharpshooter, and the next entrance comes out, and the buzzer hits, and it's Jerry the King Lawler's music starts hitting. And he's doing commentary behind Bret, right?
Okay.
And Vince McMahon is just livid. What are you doing, King? He doesn't even know you're there. Like Bret doesn't know he's commentating, right? And Lawler has this great moment where he takes his headset and he's getting ready to take it off. He goes, "You know something, McMahon? It takes a king." And he takes his headsets off, gets in the ring, and Bret punches him, and he immediately gets eliminated and goes back and finishes his sentence of "to know a king," and he's all butthurt about it. And they're like, "Did you even remember you're in the match, Jerry?" Like, it was a fun,
that's
fun
so
little
great
moment there, and a good throwback to another legendary Bret Hart feud with Jerry the King Lawler.
Yes, indeed.
But as we roll along in the Royal Rumble here, Bret Hart eliminates Stone Cold Steve Austin fair and square in the middle of the ring. But the referees, including a friend of the Count It Out podcast, Jimmy Corderas, on the outside of the ring, did not see the elimination because they were too busy breaking up a wild brawl between Mankind and Terry Funk. Steve Austin picks his moment, rolls back in the ring, illegally eliminating The Undertaker and Vader, as Bret Hart eliminates the fake Diesel, going on to be known as Kane, of course, later on in a different life. And Bret Hart is your winner of the Royal Rumble, but wait.
Oh, no! Wait a minute here.
Here is the winner of the 1997 Royal Rumble, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
He eliminated him. I didn't actually see Austin's feet hit the floor. Austin eliminated The Undertaker and Vader and Bret Hart, but Austin went out. Bret Hart eliminated Stone Cold, and the referees didn't see it. And Bret Hart is not going to stand for it. Maybe his feet didn't hit the floor, Ross. I saw it. I'm sitting right here, King. I didn't see the monitor.
And imagine Bret Hart.
I was looking at Terry Funk.
Imagine what's going on in his mind. Austin was eliminated. We saw it. We called it. The officials were over there with Mankind and Terry Funk and didn't see it.
Stone Cold dumps out Bret from behind. The referees turn around at just the right moment. And your winner of the Royal Rumble, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Anthony, what do you think of the finish of this match?
I always knew that this happened, and younger me was always confused because I didn't know that the refs were distracted. Once I saw that little detail, right? It's like these little things that you have to pay attention to that add so much of the story. Once I found that out, I was like, oh, okay. But then I was like, well, why don't they just reverse? You have Howard Finkel at ringside. He saw it. He could just tell the ref, but it kind of keeps the rules that the referee's decision is final or whatever. So I liked it, definitely. The only thing that I would change is that I kind of wished that, not really looking in hindsight, because it kind of makes sense, but not really. I kind of wish that Shawn was the one that was distracting the refs, kind of, brawling with someone. I don't know if it really makes sense, but, he was the one that cost Bret the match against Sid. So it would kind of add to Bret is getting screwed, not just screwed, but also screwed by Shawn himself. So once he's done with his business with Bret, once Bret is done with his business with Austin, now he has Michaels to look forward to. And that kind of just adds to their story. So I was kind of hoping that we would see Shawn in that spot. But who was it? It was Terry Funk and Mankind were brawling on the outside.
Brawling on the outside. I think the couple of reasons I didn't go in that direction is after this Rumble match, Shawn was actually fighting for the world title against Sid.
Okay.
They main evented, and this was in San Antonio, so the whole event was built around Shawn Michaels, winning his title back. But the clear picture is, now Shawn's the world champion. Bret, you can tell that they're building towards Shawn and Bret at WrestleMania 13 here. This is the long-term goal that they're looking at, right?
Right.
But Steve Austin, being that pesky thorn in the side, will not go away. What a great way to put Austin over. Continues his character going great. Being that pain in the ass that just is constantly screwing, here's the word again, screwing Bret Hart. And Bret Hart hits his breaking point. The next night on Monday Night Raw, he comes out and cuts this very passionate promo and quits the company.
I've been screwed by Shawn Michaels, the boy toy. I've been screwed by Stone Cold Steve Austin. I've been screwed by the World Wrestling Federation. And I've been screwed by you.
Well, after watching this promo, is it hard to argue with Bret Hart? And I'm going to ask you this a lot throughout this part of the show. Where are you on this? Is Bret Hart being a whiner? Does Bret Hart got some legitimate points here? Let's start with that.
Oh, great question, honestly, because before seeing all of this, I was of the opinion that I thought that Bret kind of was a whiner, just because, I got screwed, whatever. But then you start to go back and you see what's been happening so far. He gets screwed out of, the match with Sid. He gets screwed out of the Rumble. So it definitely makes sense. By this point, I think I was still kind of like, all right, he's kind of whining. It's only been like 2 times, really. However, then I remembered, well, he was supposed to face for the champion after he beat Austin. And was there ever a mention of that? You didn't send me anything about that, but
that was the Sid match, that In Your House It's Time. Sid was
okay. Oh, so he did get, okay. So
he got the shot. Shawn screwed him.
Right. So
screwed at the Rumble.
Yeah. So I think at that point I was still kind of like, all right, he might be whining a little bit. Austin in this segment was just so great with his lines. And then I know I'm kind of jumping a little bit, but then we get Gorilla Monsoon coming out. Right. If you want to talk about what happens then.
Yeah, so Bret Hart has quit. Steve Austin comes out and just lays into Bret Hart. Someone get his crying towel, I think was one of the lines. I can't remember if it was part 1 or part 2 of this promo where he tells Gorilla Monsoon, I got a big bunch of bananas and I'll tell you where to stick each and every single one of them. I think was part 1 of that.
Yeah.
And then as part 2 rolls along here, Vince and Gorilla come out and Gorilla basically says, listen, the referee's decision is final. We don't have instant replay like Steve said in part 1. But that doesn't mean we're going to reward Stone Cold Steve Austin's bad behavior. And he's going to put that number 1 contendership up on the line at In Your House in a Final 4 match with the 2 people that he eliminated illegally, The Undertaker and Vader. And if he will come back, Bret the Hitman Hart. And we want to make this 4-way match. The winner will go to WrestleMania and fight whoever the champion is. Sound fair? Are you on board with this, Bret? Steve Austin comes out, tells Gorilla Monsoon that they might call him a gorilla, but he's walking around looking like a jackass, which is a fantastic line as well.
Look at me when I'm talking to you. You sit there and call yourself the gorilla, yet you hee-haw out here like a jackass. Woo-hoo!
Well, can't talk to the president like that.
There ain't no way I should be in this match. I threw 29 pieces of trash over the top rope. And if that's what it's going to take, I'll get in your little 4-way match myself. The bottom line is, son, when I get through with them 4, I'll toss your carcass around the arena.
Whoa!
And then Bret comes out, accepts the match, and says, I don't want to wait. And him and Austin are just off to the races. Huge brawl. I can't remember. You have to correct me because I watched this a few days ago and I forget. Did Vader and Undertaker come out here as well and brawl?
No, they did not. I think Austin was supposed to face Taker
Yes,
on that
that's
Raw.
right.
They kept mentioning
That's
that,
right.
but it was just Bret and Austin going at it, which was really fun.
Absolutely. And that takes us to In Your House Final Four. And a little known fact about this, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm about 95% sure I'm right, is I think Austin blew his knee out the night before this pay-per-view. Austin had a bad knee going into In Your House, it's Final Four, because you'll notice that this is around the period where he starts wearing the knee brace regularly now.
Right.
And it's really weird to watch Austin fight without knee braces, and especially when he becomes the Bionic Man later with 2 knee braces on. But around this time period is where Austin starts wearing that first knee brace. So I think he had a bad knee going into all of these matches going forward now. And he went out there. Bret Hart gets his comeuppance, and we have a new world champion. But wait a minute. I thought that this match was supposed to be for the number 1 contendership. Well, why is Bret Hart our world champion after winning it? Because Shawn Michaels lost his smile.
I know that over the last several months, I've lost a lot of things, and one of them has been my smile. And I know it doesn't mean a whole lot to everybody else, but it means a lot to me. So I have to go back and fix myself and take care of myself. And I have to go back and I have to find my smile.
Anthony, I need to know your take on this. I'll tell you a little bit about the behind the scenes things that are going on around this point. What do you think about the Shawn Michaels "I lost my smile" promo?
It was, I mean, at the time it seemed very real. Tears flowing down his eyes. They got some great shots of the crowd and everything. He seemed very, talking off the cuff, like, "Oh, here's your belt. I lost my smile. I'm going to go back and find my smile."
That's the crowd chants, "We want Sid" the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, that was, and I think McMahon even is like,
he was pissed.
Yeah. He was like, I think he was completely ignoring it. He was just like, "Well, I think the crowd is a lot more sad than you are about your leaving."
It's like,
well,
the crowd's chanting, "We want Sid." Vince.
I know. Oh, fuck. This was so strange. Was it a work? This was definitely a work, because I know a little bit about conspiracies and that kind of history, and I know that WrestleMania 12 wasn't Bret like supposed to be given the favor of he's dropping the belt to Shawn. So at WrestleMania 13, Shawn would drop the belt to Bret, but Shawn, I guess, didn't want to do the honor.
And then they would build to a rubber match where Bret would finally put Shawn over a third time.
Right. Exactly.
But Shawn magically hurt his knee here. And now Shawn legitimately did go get his knee scoped out. Okay. But apparently this was something that he very easily could have worked through, and it wouldn't have been a big deal. And especially, maybe not so much in this era where people, it's a lot more encouraged to get your injuries taken care of right away. But back in the 90s here, this was like, you're a wussy if you do this. You know what I mean? Like, you can work through this. People are working through broken bones. Austin's knee is blown out at this point as well. He's working through it. But Shawn, the rumors are that he just didn't want to do the favor to Bret. He didn't want to drop the belt to him again. And there's a very famous backstage story. I don't know if it was around this time period or it could have been a few months later, because this is where Bret and Shawn really start to get into their problems. It was around this year, obviously leading to the screw job by the end of the year, where Bret said to Shawn, "Listen, just to let you know, I'm really happy to put you over. I think you're great." Like, he came to him and said some very kind words, and along the lines of, "I will put you over happily." And Shawn basically just looked at him and said, "I will never put you over. I don't want anything to do with you." Like, yeah, Shawn just kind of told him where to stick it. So and that's why Bret didn't want to drop the belt to Shawn in Montreal. Little backstory there. He said, "I'll drop the title to anybody except for Shawn."
Right.
Because Shawn disrespected Bret in that regard, right?
Yeah.
But this is where their problems really started. Bret was pissed that Shawn didn't want to put him over at WrestleMania 13. People say that Bret Hart takes professional wrestling too serious. He takes his character too seriously. That's been a constant chip on Bret. But in this case, to me, and if you're believing Bret's side, now, there's always two sides to every story. But I'm Canadian, so there's only one side of the story. It's Bret Hart's side, all right?
Does that mean
But
I have to take Michael's side? Or
well, I mean, you could, but you'd be wrong, and I have to give you an immediate F in the class. So.
Oh, all right. Well, thankfully, I'm not from Texas, so we're
you go.
good
There you go. Right. But yeah, I could see why Bret wouldn't want to put Shawn over here, and that sucks to hear. So that's a terrible thing. So leading into this promo now, which I wasn't a big fan of this promo. I thought the last like 30 seconds of it were really good. And I lost my smile. I thought that stuff was really great, but the stuff leading up to that, I thought Shawn did not come off very genuine or likable. I didn't feel bad for him.
Yeah.
But then the last 30 seconds, I'm going to go home and find my smile. I thought that was excellent stuff. So this is Shawn Michaels in 1997. And I think that his work when he came back was much better. I thought his promos were better. I thought his in-ring was better the second go around post 2002. Because I think a clean and sober Shawn Michaels really shined here. You know what I mean? You could kind of tell.
Yeah, I caught the tail end of that Shawn Michaels. The last two matches that I saw of his, and the first WrestleMania main event that I ever watched was Taker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 26, his retirement match. To compare those two, I love, post 2002 Michaels so much more. Just because it's just, well, one, I relate to it a lot more because I kind of grew up with that Shawn Michaels, but it just feels so much more genuine. That if he were to cut a, I remember seeing his retirement promo in 2010. This was the retirement promo in 2010 was miles better than this I lost my smile promo.
Yeah. He got
I
think a lot of people made fun of Shawn for this promo for a long time.
And rightfully so, the
promo wasn't great. The ending, I liked the last 20, 30 seconds I thought were nice, but the rest of it I think was kind of the shits. In Your House Final Four. Little known fact, this was actually Stone Cold Steve Austin's first ever WWF pay-per-view main event.
Wow.
And Bret Hart wins the championship, last eliminating the Undertaker over the top rope, because they had Royal Rumble rules in this, as well as this was a wild brawl. This is on your homework list. This was extracurricular though, so no need if you didn't watch it. Just a really fun match. Vader bleeds buckets in this match. This was a crazy match. It was a lot of fun and a great little stop on the road to WrestleMania here, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I didn't watch the full match. I just caught the tail end of it because I did want to see what happened. And I realized in the booking with the Gorilla Monsoon promo, WWE in 2021, they are just set in their ways on how certain things are booked. This is, something that would happen in 97 in this, everything with the controversy on the Royal Rumble. This is exactly something that would happen in 2021, whereas something was so groundbreaking in the 90s, late 90s, is something that we see on a regular basis on a Monday Night Raw in 2021. I think it's, different in this match is that the whole Royal Rumble rules and everything, which I was like confused at the ending. I was like, what the fuck? Why is he throwing him over the rope? And that's it. But still really fun. But yeah, I feel like we see this all the time now, and it like devalues it almost, because this is a huge match. They called it Final Four for a reason. This is whoever wins this is going to WrestleMania. Or as the champion. It's a huge thing. I feel like we see this all the time in current wrestling, which sucks, and it devalues it. But
and at this point too, this was kind of booking on the fly because they just lost the WrestleMania main event now, right?
Exactly.
They were going to go with Shawn and Bret. Who knows where everybody else on the card would have fallen? You know what I mean? Where does Austin go from here? Where would Taker be? Where would Sid be? Where would, Vader be at this point, right? The whole card is probably getting rewritten at this point. And that takes us the next night, Monday Night Raw, Bret Hart fighting Psycho Sid for the world title. The obsession of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Referee Earl Hebner giving the instructions. Hey, look at that! Wait a minute! There's Steve Austin! Steve Austin has absolutely become obsessed with Bret Hart. That's exactly what it's going to be. Wait! Oh, God! Oh, my God! There's Steve Austin attacking Bret Hart! Steve Austin attacking the champion! Austin attacking the champion right here! Knocking Bret down. There's Sid. Psycho Sid back there. Psycho Sid the face with that steel chair. I don't think the ref saw it. He was down in Sid's face. I don't think Sid even realized that Austin just gave him an assist. Oh no! Oh, Sid knows this. He just escaped the sharpshooter, and now he's delivering the powerbomb. Powerbomb! 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 Yeah! Sid has done it. Psycho Sid is once again a WWF champion.
Ruining this match 2 times, getting involved in it a 3rd time. What did you think about Steve Austin running wild here on Monday Night Raw?
So, quick question. Was this all in one Raw, or was this? Wow.
Yes. So Bret Hart, they were going to start Raw off with Bret and Sid, and then Austin came out and fought both of them, clipped Sid's knee, so they had to restart the match later. They were going to restart the match a 2nd time. As Bret Hart is walking to the ring, Steve Austin jumps him in the back, gives him the hockey jersey, fills him in with punches. I think he cuts a promo in between that, just saying that it's never over between him and Bret. And then sure enough, as they finally get the match started, Bret Hart has got Sid locked in the sharpshooter. Steve Austin comes out, cracks him with the chair, powerbomb, and after one night of being the world champion, our new world champion is Psycho Sid.
Insane. I would have loved to be around for a Raw like this. I think the most similar that we got was actually recently with Bobby Lashley and The Miz, that The Miz didn't want to defend his title on Raw, and he finally lost it.
That was a throwback exactly to that.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And I love that angle. So to see this with Bret, Austin, and Sid was just even more mind-blowing. Like I said, I wish I was around to see this. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that they gave Bret the belt only for 1 day. Did they confirm that Undertaker was the challenger at this point? Where
I think they announced it probably the next week.
Right. Oh, okay. So yeah, that was my next question to the professor, is where does Taker play into this? Because we're kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but then they finally announced that once Sid gets the championship, it would be Sid and Taker at Mania in the main event, and then Bret and Austin, obviously. Where did Taker come in this? Because he lost at Final Four. What happened there?
I think they just kind of gave him the number 1 contendership slot based on his track record leading up to the pay-per-view. Because he didn't win the belt at Final Four, but he was actually, I guess he lost at the Royal Rumble against Vader too. But I think they just gave it to Taker because it's Taker. You know what I mean? Bret Hart had requested the match with Austin at WrestleMania for it to be a submission match now, because Bret was pissed at Austin costing the belt. I guess Taker was just kind of the last guy left that, you know what I mean? You're not going to do Sid and Vader. They'd already done that match a bunch of times. Taker is a credible name. You're one of your top baby faces in the company now, because Shawn is gone. So yeah, I guess you just kind of fall in line, right place, right time.
Yeah, enough of a reason for me. I'm happy that Taker got
it's
that
better
spot.
than some of the title shots that we're getting these days, right?
Yeah,
so
well, very true.
So now we're introducing Ken Shamrock into the mix here. At this time period, Ken Shamrock was a badass, man. He was called the world's dangerous man by TV. TV Guide gave him that name. He had a lot of credibility to him. Very, very respected name. A lot of history with the Hart family. He did some time in the dungeon. He was trained with Stu. Bret broke him into the business, so it made sense there. What do you think of the addition of Ken Shamrock to the mix?
Looking at it from before the match, I was very excited to see it, just because special guest ref, it's great. Seeing it during the match, and we'll touch more on it during the match, but he added a lot without taking too much away from Austin and Bret, Austin and Bret, which I think is so important. Because a lot of the times you put in a special guest ref, they're the focus. Meanwhile, I felt like Ken Shamrock was kind of like blended into the background, and he was only there for those little moments that you would see throughout the match, which I loved. He added a presence to it. I actually didn't know that Ken Shamrock was as big around this time. besides just being a mid-carder. A mid-card guy in in the Attitude Era, but apparently, he was as far as you're saying, like a pretty big name. And this was
he was big in the early days of the UFC, right? So he's a former UFC champion at this point. And
right.
So people respected Ken Shamrock a lot.
And this was his first appearance.
First appearance in the WWF, yeah.
Wow.
He'd done some wrestling in Japan at the Pancreas promotion, where they were kind of doing a work shoot style. So the matches, they would work the finishes, but the matches would be more shoot style.
Right.
So he was a pro wrestling background to him. But this is his first time being in the WWF. I thought he was a great addition to the match. I like the segment where Austin basically said, "I could kick your ass if I want to," that they did leading up to that. But another angle that I liked even more leading up to that is they decided to give Bret Hart one more title shot. And they're going to lock him inside of the 15-foot high big blue steel cage with Psycho Sid. Winner is going to be your world champion. A lot of implications going into WrestleMania here. And it's fun because now you have Steve Austin helping Bret Hart because he wants to have a title match at WrestleMania. And The Undertaker is helping Sid. Very fun dynamic to this match. I thought it was so weird. There was a specific moment where Bret, Austin, and Sid were all on the top of the cage, and Bret and Austin were both pounding on Sid. And it was just so weird to see these guys working together, right? And then Taker comes out. Undertaker eventually ends up slamming the cage door in Bret Hart's face to allow Sid to retain the title. And before we get into the aftermath of that, what do you think of this little angle that they did here?
This is so fun. This has to be my favorite moment, throughout this part of the Austin Bret feud, I guess. The visual of seeing them all on the corner of the cage, just throwing blows at each other was just so great. And I just love how smart this was booked, because if you have another championship opportunity for Bret, obviously Austin's going to want that match to be for the title. This isn't something that, and I keep bringing up modern wrestling because I'm used to that, but this isn't something that you see, in modern wrestling. If I was watching Raw and this was, in 2021, I would see can these two coexist tag team of Sid and Taker versus Hart and Austin. And it wouldn't be nearly as interesting as, putting these guys in a situation where they're not forced to be in a tag team with each other. Rather, they're fighting because they want the title. That makes the world championship so much more important, that both sets of guys want this title, to be in their match. So I thought that was amazing. Taker doing that final, door spot was even great. I was kind of like holding my breath. I knew what was going to happen, but when Sid was climbing out, Bret was, escaping, I was kind of like, what is going to happen here? And then Taker comes in with the door. Great spot. Like I said, this whole segment has to be one of my favorite parts of this entire feud, taking into consideration lesson 1 and lesson 2.
I couldn't agree with you more on that one. Austin's pissed off. I gave you that on a silver platter. You screwed it up, Bret. But no one is more pissed off than Bret Hart. And after this match, I thought it was a really cool visual. The cage is half taken down. Vince McMahon comes in the ring, and Bret Hart just grabs him and throws him on his ass and cuts this promo. Just a scathing promo.
You've got to be terribly frustrated. Extremely frustrated over what has just happened.
Whoa! Frustrated isn't a goddamn word for it. This is bullshit.
Oh, we apologize,
You
ladies and
screw
gentlemen.
me, everybody screws me, and nobody does a goddamn thing about it. Nobody in the building cares. Nobody in the dressing room cares. So much goddamn injustice around here. I've had it up to here.
We apologize, ladies and gentlemen.
Everybody knows it. I know it. Everybody knows it. I should be the World Wrestling Federation champion.
Get him out of the ring.
Everybody just keeps turning a blind eye. You keep turning a blind eye to it. I got that Gorilla Monsoon. He turns a blind eye to it. Everybody in that goddamn dressing room knows that I'm the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
Cut him off.
If you don't like it, tough shit.
The frustration is out of control now, because now, let's rewind the tape. He's been screwed in your house. He's been screwed at the Royal Rumble. He got screwed by Austin to lose his title. He got screwed by The Undertaker now, and he has just hit his breaking point. And he's fed up with it, and he takes it out on Vince. Is Bret Hart crying, or is Bret Hart justified here?
This is the moment where I said Bret Hart is definitely justified. You asked me earlier on in the episode, was he crying? Is he justified? I was like, yeah, he's still kind of crying because it didn't happen as much. But now, he gets screwed by Austin multiple times. He loses the steel cage match because of The Undertaker. You take into consideration everything else that happened, even in lesson 1 with, the WrestleMania 12 and all that. Definitely he's getting screwed. And I was surprised that I was thinking this way, because I'm, considering Austin to be kind of the good guy on this point. And well, not really. That happens at 13, which we'll get to. I'm kind of siding with Austin, whatever he is, the guy. But then I'm thinking to myself, and if you told me to look at this when I was younger, and kind of see Austin and Bret, I would be, more catered towards Austin. But now I'm seeing everything that's happening. And I think it's so important that here at the Classic Match Classroom that we go through the build as well, because now you start to really see what these guys are going through before the match. And I had no idea that Bret went through all of this. And to his point, he is getting screwed. So I think that just adds so much to the rivalry. And it made me kind of feel for Bret going into WrestleMania 13. It wasn't just, these guys were fighting because they fought at Survivor Series, so they're going to do it again at WrestleMania because the match was so great. Bret has something to prove here. He wants to put away Austin so that he can eventually get to the world champion, be it Michaels, be it Taker, be it Sid. He wants to put this chapter away, do whatever he needs to do to eventually get to that championship. And I think that this was an amazing way to finally put the flag down and say, Bret Hart is getting screwed. And that is why this match is so important for WrestleMania 13.
Well, if you were back in 1996, 97, sorry, as we are now, you are the only person that is sympathetic with Bret Hart right now.
Really?
The crowd has turned on Bret Hart, or they are turning on Bret Hart, and they are cheering Steve Austin. Steve Austin is the cool badass. Everyone is getting behind the swearing. Everyone is getting behind the middle fingers. He's not drinking beer yet. Everyone would really get behind the drinking beer.
Yeah.
But everybody is behind this breath of fresh air in the wrestling business, right? Because you got to think, leading up to this, the WWF from 1994 to the end of 96 was Doink the Clown, Bash and Booger, Duke the Dumpster Drosy, The Goon, TL Hopper. You know what I mean? All this ridiculousness. Exactly. And now all of a sudden you have Steve Austin, and everybody's taking notice of him, and he's moving the needle a little bit, right? Bret Hart is getting mixed reactions, and I think that really bothered him, because I don't think he understood that, and especially the Bret Hart character. I'm the hero here. Like, I'm getting screwed. You guys are cheering this bad guy. Like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm blown away by this.
I love that angle so much, because Bret is literally in the right. Like, this promo is him saying, I'm literally getting screwed. Can you not see this? And the crowd is still going to Austin. So it makes it that much better that when Bret eventually, does take matters into his own hands, it makes it that much more impactful that he is really in the right. Whether fans see it, whether Vince sees it, Austin, looking at it now, Bret he's getting screwed and he's in the right. And I love that. That is so interesting.
100%. Before we carry on, are there any questions from the class regarding anything else before we head to the match?
Yes, I have a very big question, actually. And we're going to stay on this topic of the, Cage getting taken down, the aftermath. So, I also love that, Taker is now, brawling with Bret, and, Sid's in the mix of things and everyone's brawling. Why does Shawn Michaels come strolling out?
I just think because Vince loves Shawn. They did announce that Shawn was going to be commentating the main event at WrestleMania. I think they just wanted Sean to feel included, I guess. Because it didn't really, it was just weird. Like, and Vince was kind of like, Sean, don't you do it. Put that chair down. It's like, whoa. Like, who cares? He's not doing anything.
What was his role at this point? Was he just, this was right after
nothing.
this?
He did nothing.
Was this his first appearance since the Smile promo?
I don't know if it was his first appearance, but he hadn't been doing really much leading up to it. They would let him commentate every now and then. And he did commentate the world title match at WrestleMania. And just to fast forward a little bit, Bret Hart actually does come out before that match and cuts a promo. He looks at Taker and goes, when you slam that cage door, you slam the door on our friendship. And Shawn was like, oh, there's Bret crying again, right? So, that was basically it. He was just out there. I think they're just trying to make Shawn Michaels like a shit disturber at this point.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I remember watching this back again going, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah, like he just strolls out, doesn't hit anyone. I thought it was funny that he kind of was just watching as everything's going on. It kind of, I guess it foreshadows him coming back whenever that may be, but I guess it makes sense, but not really. But besides that, no further questions. Let's get into this match.
And now, PlayStation presents WrestleMania 13.
Well, that's going to take us to March the 23rd of 1997, the Chicago Rosemont Horizon. It's not just known for CM Punk and great ovations there. It's had some legendary matches in it. One of the most famous arenas in the history of professional wrestling, for sure. We are at the I Quit match. Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin with Ken Shamrock as your special referee. Anthony, you just watched this match for the first time, so the floor is yours. Please present what you have for the classroom.
Well, class, if you haven't checked out this match and you haven't done your homework, God, you are missing out.
Sorry to interrupt you before. How great was the pre-match video package on this?
I usually kind of just skip to the match, but I made sure to watch the promo on this one because I wanted to just make sure that I was getting everything right.
The dramatic music.
The
hero is gone.
Imagine you're at the top of the company. Oh, so great. Fucking perfect. That was such a great. That's definitely up there with whenever we get to X7, the Rock and Austin promo. It's definitely up there.
The My Way video. It's probably the only good part of that whole build. Don't even get me started.
We could do a whole episode on just the My Way promo.
100%. We could just play the My Way video and then you can watch the match.
Perfect. But hey, man, getting into this match, I went into this match with the mentality of how are you going to top what happened at Survivor Series? And although it would be hard to say that they topped it in, the reason why I say they don't really top it is because these are two different matches. And I think that's what needed to happen here. You have your more technical based match in Survivor Series where, working the arms, working the neck, you have a little bit of a brawl, but for the most part, it's a wrestling match. So in that regard, that is a 5-star wrestling match. This is all over the place. You have wrestling, you have brawling, you have in the crowd, in the ring, you have weapons, you have chairs, ring bells, a cord, you have all this stuff that
feels like a grudge match.
It feels like a grudge match. It doesn't feel like it's, the two best wrestlers trying to see who's the best. This is about revenge. This is about Bret Hart trying to prove that he has been getting screwed. This is about Austin being Austin and just wanting to beat the piss out of Bret. This is a completely different vibe, but in the same regard, this is still rightfully a 5-star A+ match. Right from the start, you get that Austin just jumping him, and they immediately.
I like how they didn't lock up. I hate when grudge matches start with a lock up.
Steve Austin doing what he does best, but Bret Hart pretty good at it as well. Austin, not a submission wrestler, but he can beat you until you say I quit.
I always look at it like WrestleMania 25, where you have Triple H and Randy Orton in this huge feud, breaking into each other's houses, RKOing this one's wife, like, all this stuff. And then you start off and you have the match at WrestleMania and it's just a wrestling match and we're just doing wrestling moves. That's not what you do when you have that type of feud. These guys built up magic and you need to magically conclude this feud. And they did it to a T. I mentioned, in the first episode, how the little things that Bret does. And one of those was hitting the turnbuckle, really hard and making it, really believable. Well, that kind of carries over into this, but not only that, but there are certain points where either Bret Irish whips Austin or Austin Irish whips Bret on the outside where it just sounds deadly, hitting the steps, hitting the ring post. You believe that he hit whatever weapon he was throwing him into.
We're back in the corral area, and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
These men have spent about 30 seconds in the ring and several minutes outside, just beating the living heck out of each other. Get over there where you can hear him, Shamrock.
I also love the little point where like they're back in the ring and Hart's doing a lot of just beating him down, whatever, and Austin's selling. But in the middle of selling, he's like he's hurt. And then he just flips the bird at someone. And then he goes back to being hurt. I was so happy I caught that because I usually miss those things. But I was making sure to like really pay attention to this match. And when I caught that, I was like, fucking great. I love this. Very similar to this feud, how you're starting to see Bret slowly turn heel. I love that this is, you're slowly seeing Bret in this match alone. Start off at the beginning. He gets, the cheers. Slowly you see his in-ring work. You barely see him really do a lot of technical stuff here. You really see him brawling. And I think that's what makes this so great, is that you're seeing a new side of Bret that the fans aren't really used to. So now they're kind of like, well, this isn't the Bret that we know. We already like Austin, so we're going to start to turn on Bret. And it's slow, like very, very slow up until the end, obviously. Even after the match, I think that's really where it kicks in, is when Hart is full heel. I mean, they did it so well, of just how he's, hinting at it. He's taking cheap shots at Austin. He's, kind of in the same fashion as Austin was working the neck for Hart in the Survivor Series match. Bret is now working the knee in the Austin match. So it kind of parallels in that regard. And shit, the chair shots when Austin when Bret's on the, sitting on the rope and Austin just wails him. Oh man, so great.
Waited too long. Wait a minute, Austin up the chair, Austin.
It's WrestleMania, baby! He's throwing that chair like Albert Bell, swinging the 36-ounce bat.
Look at Austin. Austin with that chair.
That added a lot to the match too, is just like the sounds, because you can only just like watch a match to an extent. You need to listen to a match too, especially this type of match, because from the ring post to the steps to the chair shots, everything was
they let it all breathe.
They let it breathe.
It wasn't one spot. It was a huge chair shot, and Bret sold it, and Austin was tired and selling, and they let the moments speak for themselves, right?
Absolutely. That's such a great point. And the sounds, mixed with that, it was just perfect. A perfect use of weapons in this match, because I don't think in a submission match that you technically really need to use weapons to begin with. In this match, you definitely needed to, because I forgot that this was a submission match, halfway through. I thought that this was just a regular match, just because I was so focused on this is a grudge feud, and they are doing whatever it takes to put the other guy down. They're using the ring belt, they're choking him out with the cord, all this different stuff. You forget that it's a submission match. Plus, I didn't even mention, you forget that Ken Shamrock is in there, because I mentioned he plays his role so well in that, although it gives a certain presence to the match, you have him in the background, kind of facilitating everything, making sure things go right. You know, he's in the crowd, kind of holding the fans back, which I love that. I love that visual. His no sleeve shirt was also really great.
Jacked too, eh?
Yeah. And I'll get back.
Did you love Jerry Lawler telling them to hit the drunk guy in the brown jacket?
That was great. I also just really like the visual of Bret and Austin in the crowd, and the crowd's just like
circus in there, right? No security,
no, they were just.
You don't see that today, man. Like,
I mean, when you have Ken Shamrock in the crowd, you don't really need security. I guess that guy was jacked, but I mean, yeah, you had guys slapping Bret's head. Bret was just no selling it. Like, oh man, so great.
Oh my goodness, they don't care where they take this thing. Bret Hart is spinning months and months of frustration from Stone Cold Steve Austin. These two men are beating and battering each other. Bret Hart, hit that drunk with a jacket on. This is what WrestleMania is about.
And then you get up to the finish, you know, one more thing before the finish, because, you know, you got to talk about, Austin does a submission, and I love that they put Austin in this match because, like I said, he's not really a technical guy, but now you see a complete opposite of the Survivor Series match, whereas now Austin is pulling out these technical moves, whereas Hart is still just focused in on, he's the one that brings in the weapons. He's the one that's brawling, you know. Austin does this submission where Austin's leg is pushing Bret's neck, and he's grabbing his arm, the bow and arrow. Why don't people do that move anymore?
Great move, eh?
So that's the first time I ever saw it. I didn't even know what the name of it was.
I think it's a bow and arrow. I could be wrong on that, but no, it's not a bow and arrow. I don't know the name of the move. The bow and arrow is it's like a modified surfboard. But how much more impressive does that move look than not to knock on the guy because I love him to death, but when a guy like Christopher Daniels does the Kojima clutch or whatever with that leg, like, you know, how much more impressive does this move look than that one?
And it's even more impressive because, like I said, it's Austin. It's not someone who does these technical moves or submissions. It's Austin. And I think that just adds so much to this match. And then you get to the finish, and like, there's literally nothing you can say about the finish that'll really, like, you know, put into words. You just got to watch it.
Austin's losing blood. Austin may be losing consciousness. Austin trying to get one more rush of adrenaline. Austin trying to come out of this. How in the hell Austin is not giving up? I can't understand. Ken Shamrock stopping it right now. That's it. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin has it out. Austin is unconscious. Austin never gave up. Austin never gave up. But he passed out with a pain. Austin is out.
The visuals of Austin with the bleeding face, Bret after the match, and that also was something I wanted to tie back into Ken Shamrock. Is I think his inclusion also adds a lot to Bret's heel turn, because he's the one that Bret's still going and Ken just grabs him and throws him. You can't have, you know, Little Nate or Mike Chioda or Tim White, you know, throw Bret like that.
And it let Bret be a heel to cower down from the big guy.
Exactly. I mean? And you needed that. You definitely needed that.
That was the final icing on the cake of the double turn.
And it was just so perfect. And then obviously just Austin walking back, you know, after the match, just
what a sell job on the leg.
So great. Like I mentioned earlier on, I didn't know how they were going to top this match. And it's hard for me to say that it really was, you know, I don't do 6-star matches, you know, I don't do A++, but it's on the level of the Survivor Series match in that it's still a 5-star match. It's an A+, but in their respected categories. You have a brawl, and then you have your more technical based, but both, man, there's no better way that we could have started Classic Match Classroom than with this feud. And I'm so happy that we picked this one because damn, it set the bar really high. How are you going to, how are we going to watch another feud that has 2 A+ builds and 2 A+ matches? You know, I'm looking forward to the rest of this series to see how this tops it. But man, this match was
the bar set high.
The bar has been set very, very high, and I'm glad that it is, because we got to start off with a really, really great one. So thank you, Professor, for choosing this one. But yeah,
we'll get into next week's assignment in a little bit here.
Absolutely.
I do have some points that I would like to go over here.
Go for it.
I loved Austin's entrance, the breaking glass coming down. I like how they made a comment that Bret has to walk over the broken glass. I thought that was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
I need to know from somebody in your perspective now, much younger than I am, who did not grow up in this generation. Did Bret Hart look like the coolest badass walking out with his glasses on and his leather jacket and the slick? Like, he looked super cool, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's
so it's not just the old guy holding on to his youth then, right?
And it just makes it more interesting that, like, you know, Bret Hart, for me at least, you know, I've seen so much of babyface Bret Hart. So to see this kind of, like, it planted the seed of what you were going to see for the next 30 minutes, 25 minutes. So I thought that was really cool. Just as the entrances alone.
Yeah. I've always thought Bret Hart looked so cool when I was a kid. The leather jacket, the hair, the glasses. And if anybody's listening to this, I am a wrestling memorabilia collector, and I lost my Bret Hart sunglasses. So if anyone finds a pair, shoot me a link. Maybe even buy them for me. That'd be nice, but you don't have to do that. But I need to add a pair of the Bret Hart glasses.
We got to get you on the A&E show, the Most Wanted Treasures.
Yeah, Most Wanted
WWE.
Treasures. Yeah. I'll sell my replica Paul Heyman old phone that I've signed.
Wow.
I got some cool stuff. That's a whole other show we could do.
That's extra credit right there.
That's some extra credit. So I do have some more extra credit here as well. Jerry Lawler on commentary, I loved when Austin hit him with that chair and he just yelled out, "It's WrestleMania, baby!" Like, super, super hyped about it. Did you know that there was not supposed to be any blood in this match?
Really?
There was a no blading policy in effect in the WWE at this time. And the spot where they, like, Bret wanted to get color and Austin was all for it. He said, yeah, we need to do it. And so Bret actually bladed Austin secretly in that spot, right beside Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler. And nobody had an idea. Now, if you go back, even going back and looking for it, it's almost impossible to see.
Yeah.
But go back and watch this again. When Bret Hart gets thrown to the outside of the ring right before this spot, you can see him get the blade ready. You can barely see it, though. He's so good at hiding it. And when Austin hit the barricade, when Bret walked over and grabbed his head, he nicked him. And he did it right beside Vince McMahon.
If you never told me that, I would have never, because I just remember him getting, you know, near the guardrail and that happening. I was like, okay, he's bleeding a lot.
They did it in such a perfect way, right?
So did they get in trouble for that? Because I remember like for Taker and Triple H at 27 that they can't do the headshots. That I think they got in trouble for that.
Yeah. But Bret did it so convincingly that nobody questioned that it was just an accidental color.
Hey, Bret's little things. I'm telling you.
Bret's little things, right? Absolutely. There's another similar story to that with Bret and Rowdy Piper and Flair and Macho Man, but that's a different story for a different episode of the Classic Match Classroom.
Absolutely.
So that being said, obviously the blood added to the finish. We are going to talk very quickly about the next night on Monday Night Raw. This is the last point that we're going to talk about. Bret Hart's promo the next night on Raw, the full-fledged official heel turn. It's one of my favorite promos of all time, how he comes out and apologizes to his fans in Europe and South Africa, especially to my fans in Canada, and to all my fans in the United States. Well, I apologize for nothing.
Respect. Now that we've made everything really clear with ourselves here tonight, it's obvious to me that all you American wrestling fans coast to coast, you don't respect me. Well, the fact is, I don't respect you.
And then he goes on and on. He lists every reason why he's been screwed, and he's right. And Bret Hart is right on everything he is saying. Yeah. And the crowd is booing him. And he goes, you know, it's come to my attention that you guys don't respect me very much. well, I don't respect you either. And I just thought, I love that line too. And because Bret Hart has always put, going back to lesson 1, I'm not greedy for money. I'm greedy for respect. You're not respecting me. This is bothering me. What makes a great heel is that everything Bret Hart is saying is true. I got screwed at Sid. I got screwed at In Your House by Shawn. I got screwed at the Royal Rumble. I got screwed by Austin. I got screwed here. I got screwed here. I got screwed here. Everything he's saying is right, but it sounds like he's whining. Whereas if all these things happened to Steve Austin, he wouldn't be saying I got screwed. I mean, Austin lost his title shot at WrestleMania, and he just told Gorilla Monsoon he was going to stick bananas up his ass, and he was acting like a jackass, right? The little things here, this promo that Bret Hart does, and then of course Shawn Michaels comes out, cuts the America Rah Rah promo. I love the line, it's America, love it or leave it. I always like that line that you, my fine border friends over there have. I think it's such a great line, love it or leave it. Big fan of that one. And then Bret Hart lays out Shawn Michaels, and it is the first time ever that we see the figure 4 around the ring post. What do you think of the angle? What do you think of the promo?
Oh, man. Well, what I liked about this promo specifically is that it kind of added to the idea that Hart is a heel in America, but a face in Canada. And I really, really like that vibe when a wrestler is always, a face in their hometown. And we really don't see that a lot. I think the closest you can get is Britt Baker in Britsburg, I guess, in AEW. And I hope that I wanted them to kind of take that into the story when they went to Pittsburgh and kind of present Britt as the face, but they presented her as the heel, which I think was kind of wrong. If I'm not mistaken, do they, when they go to Canada, do they present Britt as the face?
So this was a really cool time period in wrestling. Shortly after this, I believe it was the next week, Bret Hart reforms the Hart Foundation. The Owen and the Bulldog are fighting. Bret breaks them up, stops them, and just a great moment. He's like, we're family. We need to stop this. And he looks at Owen and goes, "You're my brother. I love you." And Owen breaks down into tears. It's so powerful because they feuded. We're going to talk about Bret and Owen a lot on this show as well, and the Classic Rat Classroom, because they have a great rivalry as well. Right. But, they hug it out. They have this moment. And then going forward throughout this whole summer, they add on Jim Neidhart. Brian Pillman makes his return. You have the 5 of them now running wild. And one week they would have Monday Night Raw in the States. And then the next week would be in Canada. And then the next week, the States. And then the next week, Canada. And they would blatantly, when they come out in Canada, Bret was the baby face and he would act like the baby face. And Austin would come out and be the heel.
I had no idea that they went back and forth like that.
Oh, they would go back and forth almost every week, every 2 weeks. Yeah, they were hitting up everywhere in Canada, Halifax, Saskatchewan, Edmonton. The Canadian Stampede in Calgary is the greatest ovation you'll ever hear in wrestling, maybe next to CM Punk's comeback. It's fantastic. But yeah, it was a really fun time to be a wrestling fan. But it all started with this promo the night after Raw.
Wow. And yeah, I mean, this promo was just the Michaels line of love it or leave it. That was great.
I love that line. That's such a great line.
Yeah, this really cemented his heel, persona. If the post-match against Austin didn't do that already. And man, that makes me want to go back and watch more of this, because I had no idea. Like I said, I had no idea that they went to Canada, because I think that's such an important thing to do.
Big time.
Because, they you have to present Bret in the fashion that, yes, he did get screwed. He still has his fans that he admires in his hometown. But you have that other outlook of, the fans don't really care that he got screwed. They're more for Austin in the States. So that's just so many layers that I didn't even know were a part of this.
How about this in the future? Let's say around Survivor Series time in a couple months, because there are other classic matches I want to get to that don't involve Bret. We will finish Bret Hart's run in the WWF. We will do Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series, and we will detail this entire run leading up to their match. There's a whole different story to be talked about there.
Absolutely.
That'll be our Survivor Series special.
Yeah, what better way to do a Survivor Series special in November than to do Bret and Sean? You know, we got to do that for sure.
Absolutely. We'll put it on the list. Extracurricular homework for the classroom. If you guys want to see some good stuff, I mentioned the reunion promo that Bret and Owen cut. Bret Hart and Steve Austin have a street fight on Monday Night Raw. That is absolutely fantastic. I did not send you the link to that one. But I will, because it's so great, and it's just Steve Austin running wild, but it hasn't really nothing more to do with it's kind of the end of the Bret Hart Steve Austin one-on-one feud. Austin would segue. He would always feud with the Hart Foundation, but Bret was moving on to Sean. Steve was moving on to Owen. But it was kind of like the final little nail in the coffin there. Bret Hart needed to get knee surgery. So this was his excuse to get taken out of knee surgery. They have a street fight on Monday Night Raw. Bret Hart is wearing, a shirt and jeans. Steve is wearing the Austin 316 shirt. He ends up beating Bret Hart. There's no referee. There's no rules. It's just a wild brawl. But he puts Bret in the sharpshooter for a long time. And that's the write-off for Bret Hart to get knee surgery, which Bret didn't miss any time for. He would come out every week on Raw on crutches. Steve Austin attacked Bret Hart in the ambulance after this match. It was great moment. That's your extracurricular activity to watch. As well, Bret Hart and Steve Austin on the Broken Skull Ranch. They talk about this Survivor Series match and the WrestleMania match in great detail. Steve Austin's very proud that he blew up Bret Hart in the Survivor Series match. And Austin's like, my favorite part of the match is after the match. After you pin me, you get your hand raised, and there's this moment where you look at the camera and go, holy fuck. He's like, and I knew I blew you up, and I was proud of that.
That's great.
So those are the two extracurriculars if you want to do some extra reading up on Bret Hart versus Steve Austin. But that is the end of my lesson this week. Any questions from the classroom before I present to you next week's homework?
I don't think I have any questions. Again, Professor, you're doing an amazing job explaining all of these things. And, I'm writing all these down, these little facts in my notebook. So I will definitely keep them handy for when we go back and talk about Bret and Sean, which I'm looking forward to. But yeah, I mean, as far as just a final thought.
How about I ask you a final question?
Go for it.
Does Bret Hart versus Steve Austin hold up over 25 years later, however many years later it is, to the modern wrestling fan that did not grow up in this era? Does this still hold up all this time later?
It doesn't just hold up, but it is miles ahead of what we're seeing today. I couldn't tell you when we will ever see another Pillman Has a Gun. I can never tell you when we're going to see another the steel cage match with Bret and Sid and that whole dynamic. I can never tell you when we're going to see another one of these iconic Bret Austin matches, be it technical based or brawl. This not only holds up, it has to be one of the best stories that I have seen in my time of watching wrestling, old, new, whatever it may be. So definitely, yes, it does hold up. And it just makes me, like I keep saying, it makes me want to see more. I want to see Austin versus Pillman. I want to see, Bret and Sean when we talk about it. I want to see all these things. And this isn't something that I could say for Raw. I don't finish watching 3 hours. I don't finish looking at the color red for 3 hours and say, oh, I want to do that again next week. I stopped watching Raw because I just don't care about it anymore. This is something that if I was watching in 96, 97, I would say, I cannot wait to see where they go with Bret and Sean. And wow, they're starting off Austin and Owen. This is insane. I need to keep watching this because I know that these two are going to have some great matches. You don't see that nowadays. And I think this is why this show is going to be so fun. It's because I get to check out a lot of what I missed and really see where these great feuds went and where we are now comparing that.
All right. Well, I guess without further ado, I should assign the homework for next week.
Indeed.
Next week's homework is we are going to go all the way back, starting 88. We're going back to 1988, and we're going to talk about the Mega Powers exploding, culminating at WrestleMania 5, Hulk Hogan versus the Macho Man, Randy Savage.
That's great. That is a great way to move on to this next episode.
That's right. Then why don't you tell everybody where they can find us one more time on social medias?
Yes, folks, class, I hope that you enjoyed today's lesson. I know I did, and I know that I'm looking forward to next week's lesson. And I know that you are excited to be in the class with the professor and the prodigy. But the only way that you could do that is by tuning in every week. We're on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you could find your podcast. We are there, as well as a YouTube version, which you should go ahead, subscribe, leave a like wherever you find this version over on YouTube. If you want to follow our social medias to learn more about the episodes that we'll be posting in the future and to suggest some lessons in the future, you can go ahead and follow us on Instagram at Classic Match Classroom, as well as on Twitter at CM Classroom. We have some great content coming your way, and I know that this is going to be one hell of a ride here at school.
Absolutely. And everything will also be posted over at www.countout7.com, where you can also find a link to another great podcast where you turn your attention to the Titantron.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I might have to check that one out. You also, I think I've been on that website a few times. Something about number 7 counted out.
Yeah, like Counted Out 7, maybe the greatest wrestling countdown podcast of all time.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. Yeah, for sure.
It's gotta be up there. But on that note, until next week, everybody, class has been dismissed.